If you want the Browns to make the playoffs, like the video. This is not some kind of pull to get a whole bunch of likes. I genuinely would like to have you guys like the video because the Browns have very little playoff history in the last 2 decades or so. So with them at 7-3, let's not chance it. Let's just like a YouTube video. We're talking playoffs on today's show. Now, let me start off by saying this. Definitely a little bit on the early side, but you know what? The Browns are not 7-3 every single season, so I figured on today's show we would run through playoff path, picture, and predictions all together. What is ahead for the Browns as they go into the last third of the season in a pretty good spot right now. When we look at the updated AFC playoff picture, now I am filming this, by the way, on Tuesday during our live show, so depending on when this video goes out, that could implicate things for the Dolphins-Jets game. But the Browns are currently the 5 seed at 7-3, the best of the non-division winners, and that would have them on a collision course to play the Dolphins if they were to hold on and beat the Jets on Black Friday, maybe the Jags potentially. But this is the current AFC playoff picture, and now the AFC North standings. The Ravens are at 8-3. The Browns are right behind them at 7-3. The Pittsburgh Steelers, who are about to become a really bad football team that they have been all year, but they are finally going to get exposed for it, are 6-4. And the Bengals, they might be out of it all the way at the bottom. So here are the Browns playoff odds. As we kind of run through some of the facts and figures here. To make the playoffs, the Browns have an 86% chance. All this coming from the New York Times playoff machine. To win the division, 25% chance. To get the 1 seed, 7% chance. In case you're wondering, the highest 1 seed odds were the Dolphins at 12%. So it's really early on. We have a lot of football to be played. And to make the Super Bowl, 2% chance. So here is the remaining schedule for Cleveland. They go to Denver in Week 12 and take on a 5-5 Broncos club. Then they go on the road once again. They're going to stay out west, by the way, and take on the 4-6 Rams team that just had an emphatic win against the Seahawks. Week 14 is against the Jags. Week 15, home against the Bears. So 2 big road matchups and then 1.5 big home matchups. Then they have the Texans on the road on Christmas Eve. They have the Jets coming to town for now on Thursday Night Football, but I could see that changing. And then Week 18 is in Cincinnati to round out the regular season. So before we start looking at what the Browns are going to do in terms of predictions for the rest of the schedule and overall playoff predictions, I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Prize Picks. Now, what is Prize Picks, Petey? Well, it's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. We all know there could be some absolute stinkers of primetime matchups, aka anything with the Jets or the Raiders, but with Prize Picks, you can stay locked in on the game. Here are my selections for Thursday Night Football, Turkey Day, and whatnot. I'm taking the more on Christian McCaffrey at half a rushing and receiving yard. I'm taking the more on Jahmyr Gibbs, 79.5 rushing plus receiving yards. Tony Pollard, more on his rushing yards. I'm just going for a clean slate on the RBs mores. And then I tossed in Brandon Ayuk and DK Metcalf combining for at least more than half a touchdown. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. The link for that is in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Looking ahead here, let's look at the remaining schedule and start giving out some predictions. Starting with a pair of road games out west. They have the Broncos this Sunday, which I think is going to be a win, but this game definitely gives me the heebie-jeebies. Broncos are hot. They have won 4 in a row. They've been playing really good defense, and I understand they gave up 70 points to the Dolphins, but that was the September Broncos. The November Broncos are a very different team. Now, I also have the Browns losing in Week 13 to the Rams. To be honest with you guys, I would be very happy if Cleveland comes out of this 2-game road stretch 1-1. You can divvy up the losses however you want. Have them lose to Denver and beat the Rams. I don't really have a strong opinion as to which of these 2 games they might win or lose. I do believe they are going to go 1-1. So whether it's a win in Denver and a loss in LA or vice versa, if the Browns were to beat the Broncos and lose to the Rams, they would have a 93% chance of making the playoffs. That would have them at 8-4. If they were to lose to the Broncos and beat the Rams, they would have an 88% chance of making the playoffs. If you're going to lose games, have it be to an out-of-conference opponent. In-conference opponent, that goes into tiebreakers for the playoffs. But I predict that Cleveland will go 1-1 on this road stretch. Not really sure which game they win or lose ultimately, but if they can go 1-1, that would be a big win, I feel like. Moving on to their 2-game homestand here. I think they might fall short against the Jags. This might be one of those games where the defense is going to play well, the defense is going to keep this team in games, but ultimately they're not playing the Steelers and Kenny Pickett, who sucks, by the way, and Matt Canada. No, unfortunately, I think Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence could get the Browns number in this one. However, I have them bouncing back to beat the Bears. Again, I always look at schedule predictions as chunks, right? Not specific games, but hey, in this 2, 3, 4 game stretch, what's that team going to do? And I think the Browns can go 1-1 on the road and 1-1 at home, which would bring Cleveland to 9-5 entering the last 3 games of the regular season. And at 9-5, that would have them at a really good spot to make the playoffs. I mean, look at the history of the NFL 17 playoff, and here are all 6, 7 seeds under this bracket. You've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of these 6 teams who were the 7th seed, all be 9 wins or less, right? Only one team had more than 9 wins as the 7th seed, and that was the 2020 Indianapolis Colts, in which a 10-6 Miami Dolphins team missed the postseason. So pretty much safe to say that if you reach 9 wins, you're going to make the playoffs. You are at least going to get that 7th seed. So if the Browns can go 2-2 between these next 2 road and home games, they would pretty much lock up a playoff spot in my eyes. But if you want to watch some playoff watch parties, something we have not been able to do on this channel since it has been birthed, well, make sure to sub for Dubs, because this is going to be an absolute party if the Browns make the playoffs, and you do not want to miss it. So no RSVPs needed, not even a save the date. Just show up to our watch parties when we start having some playoff games and sub for more Dubs, baby. Moving on to the rest of my schedule prediction. Week 16 at the Texans. I think this one might be a loss. The Houston Texans are a legit contender. I mean, they are 6-4, and it's not a fraudulent 6-4 record, right? The Steelers are frauds at 6-4. The Texans are a good team. And on the road, Christmas Eve, don't you just kind of feel like this is going to be a game that Texans fans are going to be able to see a win before Christmas Day? It's a little early present from Santa. I think that might be a loss for Cleveland. However, I have them bouncing back at home against the Jets with a win. No idea who's going to be playing quarterback for New York. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to return unless the Jets have a legitimate chance of making the playoffs. But who knows if that just means that they're not mathematically eliminated, or if they have a real chance, like if they are at 500 or 1 game below hand, that Aaron Rodgers would return. And if it's not Rodgers, will it be Zach Wilson? Will it be Tim Boyle? I don't know, but I like the Browns' defense at home. And finally, Week 18 at the Bengals. If Joe Burrow is playing, probably a very different outcome. However, it's not. It's Jake Browning. And if we got 2 backup quarterbacks going out of here, I'll take the better defense, which is Cleveland. So I have the Browns going 11-6, which feels really rich for a team rolling with a backup QB. But we also just ran through the schedule, and they're 7-3 right now. So I'm having them go 4-3 the rest of the way. I feel like this defense can easily go 500. Add in an extra game against 2 backup quarterbacks to round out the season. Yeah, they could probably win those 2 games. Maybe they go 1-1 against the Jets and the Bengals, and they go 10-7 instead. But 10-7, I think, would get you into the playoffs. So here are my playoff predictions. I don't like having the Chiefs get the 1 seed because their wide receivers are awful. But let me tell you right now, the Chiefs have a super easy schedule. And every time Reed and Mahomes face a little bit of adversity, they bounce back. Wink, wink, week 1, loss against the Lions, and they won how many games straight after that? Yeah. I have the Ravens winning the division at 12-5. They have a really tough schedule coming up, so hopefully I'm wrong, but my preseason prediction was that the Ravens get the 1 seed, the Ravens get the AFC North title. The Browns get the number 2 spot. The Bengals come in 3, and the Steelers come at 4. I have the Dolphins coming in at 3, the Jags coming in at 4, and then the Browns at 5, the Bills at 6, and the Texans. Yeah, the Texans getting the final playoff spot. So in this bracket, it would be Cleveland at Jacksonville, Buffalo at Miami, Houston at Baltimore. I think the Ravens would beat the Texans, the Dolphins would beat the Bills, and the Browns would beat the Jags in a redemption game from the earlier loss in the regular season. And who knows after that, a lot of football. I've got the Eagles taking the 1 seed in the NFC 14-3 season. I think the 49ers come in next at 13-4. The Lions also with a 13-4 record coming in at number 2. I'm not very confident about the Falcons winning the NFC South, but someone has to, and they have the 32nd ranked remaining strength of schedule. Cowboys come in as the best wild card spot. That would put them on course to play whoever comes out of the NFC South. The Seahawks, just because who else, right? I mean, I don't think the Vikings are going to sustain the success they had for the last few weeks up until their Sunday night loss. I think the Josh Dobbs magic might be running out, which is why I actually have the Rams at 8-9 making the postseason. I don't think we're going to see 2 NFC South teams make it. We already have 2 NFC East teams. It's not going to be the Commanders or the Giants. No way the Bears, Packers make it. So with me out on the Vikings, we're down to just the Lions, and I don't think the Cardinals. I mean, so we're really down to just these last 2 teams that sort of just file in for the right to lose to the 49ers and the Lions. I give you your predictions, though, to wrap up today's video. 9.5 wins, over or under for Cleveland. They're at 7 right now. Can they win 3 more games? Let me know your thoughts down below.